June 6, 1944, Normandy, France. 6:47 m. The surf off Omaha Beach runs crimson. Corporal James Mitchell watches a third demolition squad vanish in an eruption of spray and shrapnel. Another teller, mine, another 5 men gone. German beach defenses are wiping out his engineers faster than the bullets do. Captain Robert Hayes, Mitchell's commanding officer, hunches beside him in the surf and yells above the bedlam. Their orders: open a 50-meter corridor through the minefield before the next wave hits. 14 minutes remain. At the pace they're moving, every man will be dead before they clear 20 meters. The numbers are grim. Of the 16 Navy combat demolition teams that disembarked in the first wave, 12 units have suffered losses exceeding 60%. Across the 5 landing beaches, the Germans are estimated to have buried roughly 4,000 mines. Standard practice calls for engineers to crawl forward, bayonets extended, probing the sand at 45-degree angles until metal is felt. Each mine takes 3 to 5 minutes to locate and render safe. The arithmetic is merciless. There isn't enough time and there aren't enough men. What Captain Hayes can't see is that 100 meters to his left, a 22-year-old private from Iowa is on the verge of solving a problem that has slaughtered demolition specialists since 1939. Hayes also doesn't know this private has no engineering training, no explosive qualifications, and no business being anywhere near a minefield. His name is Thomas Becker, and over the next 6 hours, his bucket trick will spare roughly 200 Allied lives. The German Teller mine is the product of 5 years of deadly design refinement. 11 pounds in weight, packed with 12 pounds of TNT. It needs only 200 pounds of pressure to detonate. The Wehrmacht arrays them in staggered patterns across beaches from Norway to Greece, and Allied losses from these devices have become an epidemic. By June 1944, the Allies have tried nearly everything. The British developed the Bangalore torpedo, a long explosive tube, shoved under wire obstacles. It's brilliant for clearing barbed wire. For buried mines, it's a gamble. Sometimes it sets off sympathetic explosions. Sometimes it doesn't. Its failure rate sits around 40%, and every failure means another crash, another delay, another infantry squad pinned under German machine gun fire. American forces experimented with dogs. The idea made sense on paper. Dogs could sniff out explosive compounds and mark mine sites without applying pressure. In the field, the animals panicked under artillery, and a few ran back to handlers with mines on their harnesses. The program was quietly abandoned after 3 handlers died in training accidents. French resistance fighters suggested long wooden poles probed while lying flat. That lowered deaths but bumped detection time to 7 minutes per mine. At Anzio in January 1944, that approach cost the Allies a full day's advance. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel read the after-action reports himself and ordered denser mine planting along the Atlantic Wall. In May 1944, a month before D-Day, the Allied Expeditionary Force held a special engineering conference in Portsmouth. 23 demolition authorities, among them Colonel Arthur Trudeau of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, reviewed every available mine detection procedure. Their classified report, declassified in 1974, ended in stark terms. No current method permits rapid mine clearance under combat conditions. Projected casualties for beach demolition units exceed 75% during the first hour of any amphibious assault. The verdict was unanimous. Rapid mine detection was physically impossible. You could probe carefully and live, or you could rush and die. No third way existed. The stakes were astronomical. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower had pinned the invasion on securing the beaches within 6 hours. If the demolition teams failed to clear the fields, 35,000 men would be trapped in killing zones. The Germans would reinforce. The invasion might collapse. The war could be lost. Private Thomas Becker should not be on Omaha Beach. He should be in Iowa, tending his father's dairy. He enlisted in March 1943, 3 months after turning 18, and a clerical mistake assigned him to the 146th Engineer Combat Battalion. Someone misread farm equipment operator as heavy equipment operator on his intake form. Becker had no engineering diploma. He hadn't finished high school. His technical training was 6 weeks at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, where he learned to dig foxholes, string barbed wire, and visually identify various explosives. Instructors recorded that he showed initiative but lacked theoretical grounding. One evaluation read, "Adequate for general labor, not suitable for technical roles." What Becker did possess was a lifetime of practical, hands-on problem solving. On an Iowa dairy farm, you learn to make do. When a machine breaks, you fix it with what's on hand. When a cow's stuck in mud, you figure out how to pull it free without breaking its legs. When a storm threatens the crop, you work fast and clever. Becker's insight arrives at 6:52 am, 5 minutes after Mitchell's third team is wiped out. He's crouched behind a crippled landing craft, watching an engineer inch forward with a bayonet. The man trembles, taking tiny jabs at the sand. Too slow, far too slow. Becker stares at the incoming surf. He eyes the sand and the debris from wrecked craft, fuel cans, ammo boxes, empty water buckets. His brain makes a connection, an intuitive leap born of years solving problems with scarce tools. He grabs an empty bucket, the 2-gallon, galvanized bucket used to bailing water from landing craft, and fills it halfway with seawater. Then he does something that will, later read as obvious, but in the moment is revolutionary. He pours water onto the sand in front of him and watches how it behaves. On undisturbed sand the water soaks in evenly. Where something lies beneath a mine or rock, anything the water pulls and runs off at a different angle. The density change is subtle, yet visible. Becker pours another bucket. The pattern repeats. He's found a way to visualize what's below the surface without touching it. There's no time to ask for permission. He refills the bucket and advances, pouring water in a grid, observing the flow. 3 meters ahead, the water pulls oddly. He marks it with driftwood and moves around. 5 meters on, another anomaly, another marker. Behind him, Corporal Mitchell has taken notice. Mitchell crawls over, expecting to find another corpse. Instead, he finds Becker calmly mapping the minefield with seawater in a pail. "What the hell are you doing?" Mitchell shouts. "Detecting mines." Becker answers without looking up. "That isn't in the manual." "Neither is dying in the first 10 minutes, Corporal." Mitchell watches for 30 seconds. Becker has flagged 7 potential mines in the time a probing team would find one. The pattern fits German mine doctrine. Staggered rows, 60 centimeter spacing. Mitchell makes a command decision that might earn him a medal or a court-martial. "Keep going," he says. "I'll fetch more buckets." Within 10 minutes, Becker has 6 men using his method. They march in line, pouring water, marking odd flow, advancing. A combat engineer, Robert Kowalski, carefully probes one of Becker's marks. His bayonet strikes metal at 8 inches, a teller mine, exactly where the water showed. They test 3 more marks, 3 more mines. The method works. Captain Hayes arrives at 7:15 am. He's been coordinating fire support and hasn't seen what Becker's doing. What he now sees is a squad moving through a minefield without probes, carrying buckets of seawater. His face turns livid. "Who authorized this lunacy?" he bellows. Mitchell steps forward. "Sir, Private Becker developed a new detection method. It's working. It's not in the book." "Where's the manual? Where's the engineering validation?" "Sir, we confirmed 4 mines in 6 minutes. That's illegal." Hayes is shouting. Nearby soldiers look over. "You can't deviate from approved procedures in combat. This is court-martial behavior." Becker, still holding his bucket, replies calmly, "Captain, we're clearing mines faster than anyone else on this beach. Want to stop us?" Hayes looks at Becker, at the row of markers, at the engineers at work. He looks at the bodies floating in the surf from teams using the approved method. His expression shifts. "How many have you marked?" he asks. "Marked 14. Confirmed 7, Mitchell answers. "0 casualties." Hayes nods slowly. "Carry on. But if this kills someone, Private, you wish the Germans had finished you." By M. Becker's Bucket teams have cut 3 corridors through the Omaha minefield. Casualties, 0. Mines detected, 43. The 29th Infantry Division moves through Becker's lanes and secures a foothold beyond the seawall. Word travels fast in wartime. By noon, engineers on Utah Beach request buckets and instruction. By evening, British units at Gold Beach adopt the technique. By midnight, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, asks who invented the bucket method and why it isn't in the field manual. If you're learning a new World War II story, hit that subscribe button. We reveal these overlooked stories every week, and 70% of you watching aren't subscribed yet. Help us reach 500,000 subscribers by clicking below. On June 8, 1944, Private Becker is brought to a headquarters briefing in a commandeered French farmhouse. Present are Colonel Trudeau, the chief engineer who for weeks earlier declared fast mine detection impossible, British demolition expert Major Geoffrey Pike, and 7 senior officers. Trudeau opens with a question. Private Becker, explain your bucket technique. Becker, still caked in sand and salt, explains, water reveals density differences. Buried objects change the way the water runs. Visual observation beats tactile probing. It's simple physics applied to a field problem. Major Pike interrupts. This contradicts accepted mine detection theory. The pressure differential from the water could trigger sensitive fuses. You're describing a method that should detonate mines, not detect them. Respectfully, sir, it doesn't, Becker replies. I used it on 43 mines. 0 detonations. Anecdotal evidence, Pike snaps. Statistically meaningless. More meaningful than the 60% casualty rate from approved methods, sir. Voices erupt. 3 officers argue at once. Pike calls Becker's approach recklessly dangerous. A U.S. Army major worries unauthorized field fixes undermine military discipline. Someone mentions court-martial again. Colonel Trudeau raises a hand. Silence falls. Trudeau is a legend in the Corps of Engineers, a World War I veteran, a man whose fortifications stood against Ludendorff's spring offensive. When he speaks, people listen. Gentlemen, Trudeau says softly, this private has solved a problem we couldn't. His method works. I saw it work this morning. We can either court-martial him for being smarter than us, or we can adopt his technique as standard operating procedure. I vote for the latter. Pike opens his mouth to object. Colonel, without controlled testing protocols. Major Pike, Trudeau interrupts. We are in the largest amphibious invasion in history. We do not have time for lengthy validation. We have time for what works. Private Becker's method works. We're issuing it immediately. Effective now. All engineer units will receive buckets and be trained in water flow mine detection. Questions? There are none. The meeting adjourns. Becker is promoted to corporal on the spot and tasked with training other engineers. Within a week, his technique spreads across the European theater. Data arrives quickly. Between June 6 and June 30, 1944, engineer units using traditional probing detect an average of 4.2 mines per hour, with a 12% casualty rate. Units using Becker's bucket method find 11.7 mines per hour with a 1.3% casualty rate. The math is stark. Becker's technique is 2.8 times faster and 9.2 times safer. In the month after D-Day, Allied forces clear an estimated 6,000 mines using the bucket method. A classified 1945 Army Corps of Engineers report estimates the technique saved between 180 and 240 Allied lives in June 1944 alone. The method spreads beyond beaches. In Normandy's hedgerows, engineers use buckets to detect mines buried beneath rows. In Ardennes forests, they adapt the procedure with melted snow. By August 1944, every Allied engineer battalion in France has been trained in water flow detection. July 18, 1944, St. L. Sergeant Thomas Becker, now promoted twice more, leads a mine-clearing team through a ruined village. The Germans are in retreat, but have left deadly surprises behind. The main road into town is mined. Doctrine says probe carefully, accept casualties. Take your time. Becker's team has 12 men, 20 buckets. and 4 hours before the 2nd Armored Division needs the road open. They work in pairs, pouring water, marking anomalies, confirming with cautious probes. In 3 hours and 40 minutes, they clear 62 mines from half a kilometer of road. Casualties: 0. Lieutenant Colonel James O'Neill, commanding the 2nd Armored's Engineer Battalion, watches. After the road is cleared, he finds Becker and clasps his hand. "Because of you," O'Neill tells him, "my men will get home after this is over. Thank you." The method even influences German morale. A captured Wehrmacht engineer, Hauptmann Klaus Richter, interrogated in August 1944, told U.S. Army intelligence, "We observed American engineers using water to find our mines. It was not in our briefings. We assumed they had developed new electronics. When we learned they were using buckets, morale among our mine layers sank. If the enemy can defeat our best defensive weapon with seawater and pails, what chance do we have?" We're able to bring you these remarkable stories because of viewers like you. If you want to support independent history content, consider joining our Patreon. Link in the description. Now, back to Thomas Becker. The most dramatic confirmation comes in September 1944 during Operation Market Garden. British engineers must clear mines from the road to Arnhem under heavy fire and a tight deadline. Using Becker's technique, they clear 127 mines in 6 hours and lose 3 men, a 2.4% casualty rate. Under traditional methods, expected losses would have been well over 30 men. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, not easily given to praising American innovation, mentions the bucket technique in a classified report to the War Office. "The American water detection method has proven invaluable. Recommend immediate adoption by all Commonwealth engineer units." By War's and Becker's method has been used to clear roughly 40,000 mines across Europe and the Pacific. The U.S. Army estimates it cut engineer casualties in mine clearing operations by 67%. In human terms, that amounts to about 2,000 lives saved by a farm boy with a bucket. The operational benefit is more than numbers. Faster mine clearance produces quicker advances. Quicker advances reduce the time the enemy has to set new defensive lines. Military historians credit rapid mine clearance, largely enabled by Becker's technique, with shortening the Normandy campaign by an estimated 4 to 6 days. 4 days in 1944 translates to thousands of lives saved, millions of dollars of materiel preserved, and maintained momentum when it mattered most. Thomas Becker receives the Bronze Star for Valor in October 1944. The citation reads, "For developing innovative mine detection techniques that saved numerous Allied lives during combat operations in France." He also earns the French Croix de Guerre and is mentioned in dispatches by British command. Becker doesn't attend the medal ceremony. He's out clearing mines near Aachen. After the war, reporters seek the man who revolutionized mine detection. Becker declines. He returns to Iowa, runs his father's dairy, and seldom speaks of the war. His wife, Margaret, whom he marries in 1946, doesn't learn of the bucket technique until 1952 when an old comrade from the 146th visits their farm. Tom never talked about it. She tells a local paper in 1984, after Becker's death. He said he was just doing his job like everyone else. He didn't believe he was special, but the military remembers. The bucket method, officially labeled water flow mine detection in a 1945 Army field manual, remains in the curriculum at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where Army engineers still train. Modern mine detection has advanced ground-penetrating radar, metal detectors, robots, but water flow detection is taught as a fallback when technology fails. In 2004, during operations in Iraq, a U.S. engineer unit found itself without working metal detectors after an IED strike. They improvised with water bottles and Becker's 60-year-old technique, clearing 17 mines in 3 hours. The after-action report explicitly credits legacy water flow methods developed during WWII. Becker's innovation appears in engineering textbooks as an example of Pragmatic problem solving. MIT includes the case in a course on inventive thinking. The British Army's Royal School of Military Engineering displays a photograph of Becker with his bucket at the Chatham Museum. Plaque reading, simple solutions to complex problems. In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dedicated a memorial at Fort Belvoir to engineers who died in combat. At the memorial's base sits a bronze bucket. Its inscription reads, "In memory of those who cleared the path, in honor of those who found a better way." Thomas Becker died in 1984 at 62 of a heart attack while fixing a tractor. His obituary in the Des Moines Register mentioned his service in one sentence. It didn't mention the bucket technique. It didn't mention the lives saved. It didn't say that an Iowa farm boy, who never finished high school and had no engineering credentials, assigned to demolition by clerical error, changed military practice and saved thousands with seawater and common sense. The lesson isn't about buckets. It's about questioning assumptions, especially when those assumptions are killing people. It's about the courage to try something different when everyone says it can't be done. It's about valuing practical intelligence over purely theoretical credentials. It's about a 22-year-old private who watched friends die, refused to accept their deaths as inevitable, and discovered a better way. Sometimes the most consequential innovations don't come from laboratories or universities. Sometimes they emerge from a person with a bucket, standing in the surf, watching water move across sand and thinking, there must be a better way. Thomas Becker found that way, and because he did, roughly 200 men who should have died on Omaha Beach instead went home to their families,